Today we will discuss how not to underperform this cycle. We will discuss the mistake that you are making through all of this cycle that cost you tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars as well. We will talk about this one thing on fixing which you would be heavily capitalized moving further. This is something that short cycle participants are exploiting a lot, and this is something that makes them millions and millions of dollars because they understand this game and they've made this mistake already. If you want to figure out what is this mistake, why it is happening, and how to solve it, how to increase your outperformance this cycle by a factor of 10x at least, stay tuned, watch this video till the end, and like and subscribe to this channel. Without further ado, let's actually start. The number one thing that screws you over in crypto, 10x potential. What is it? Why? How to evade? Let's move on. And obviously the issue is rotation. Is you rotating capital from one coin to another, from things that are underperforming into things that are performing? You have to be very, very careful with that, because for me personally, if I did not rotate most of my alts into memes back in winter, I would be underperforming heavily. So at that time, it definitely made sense. At the same time, if you're rotating from one meme into another, from one project into another, most times what you are doing is you are actually decreasing the size of your bags. You are just heavily trimming your bags. And do an interesting exercise. Do a comparison with your initial portfolio that you actually had initially and what you have currently, and see whether or not you actually outperformed or underperformed. I do honestly think that by the end of this cycle, if I would check the initial portfolio that I had, I would probably outperform all of my things and actions that I was doing. We would see if this would essentially come true, but I heavily decreased the size of my positions through me just doing shit, being right initially and then just fumbling the bags. Very, very important. What is asset rotation? In simple words, selling something that's cheap that you hold and not moving, and buying into something that prints green candles. Reread one more time and understand what they're doing. You are selling something that's cheap and that's consolidating for a large amount of time, for a long time, and you're buying into something that grows. You are buying into green candles. You are buying into something where people were not taking profits yet, and will start to take profits once they would understand that probably the movement is halted, probably the upside is limited. Very, very important piece of information. You are fine if you are buying a new meta early. So speaking about meme coins, if there is a new meta and you understand that probably this thing has a lot of room to run and you are definitely early, this is fine. Just take some of your long-term bags, reposition. At the same time, you can be wrong. You can be wrong and your bags can just go to zero. This is something that I was experiencing a lot of times. I was buying into some beta plays, into some things, and they were unfortunately going to zero. They were too good to be true. Fortunately, I was not buying into them with large portions of capital. You have some insights. This is pretty much the best information, the best type of situation you might be in it. You have some information, certain assets pumping up and things like that. At the same time, we have to understand that in the crypto market, oftentimes, things that are being shared, they're not happening as stated initially. I've seen many times people who are saying this thing will be pumping because it has this team, it has that team, it will be pushed. Nothing was happening. So you have to be very, very careful with insights. You have to be careful where are you in the chain of receiving insights. Maybe the main insight already played out and you are exit liquidity for people sharing the insight further, right? You're repositioning into a blue chip beta play of your asset, meaning beta will grow anyway with your asset surging up. This is something you should be very, very careful about, and ideally you would want to check out what is happening on the charts. Is your beta play actually surging up after your alpha play is moving something? So is your beta play is actually repeating the chart of alpha play? Usually with quality betas is essentially a very, very nice thing. Oftentimes I actually find myself being a beta trader, because quite often I just miss the alpha play. For some reason I don't want to get in because I don't see enough upside, and in some cases I'm right, in some cases I'm wrong, and I find myself capitalizing nicely on beta plays, which is a very, very interesting situation if you think about that. Moving further, why this is happening and why it actually trims your bags heavily. Often you're buying into green candles, you're buying based on FOMO. This is something that should not be happening, because understand what you're doing when you're buying into green candles. You're buying into something where people did not take profit yet, and they will be taking profit on the consolidation. in the liquidity creation zone. They will be, most people, they are not taking profits at the tops during the pumps and things like that. They are taking profits during the liquidity creation, when they think that the asset is probably like going down and there is not much upside left and things like that. It's a very, very important thing. I find it myself, honestly, because I find myself doing the same in some cases. As at the top you're thinking, wow, this asset is so great, we're going higher and things like that, I will not be taking profits, I will just sit through the dip, and then you're ending up taking profits at the dip, which is not something you should be doing in the first place. You are giving a better entry point for other market participants. If you're a bit selfish, you might think that when you are selling something where you have a back, which is consolidating, we are pretty much giving a better entry point for other market participants that did not spend this much time that you spend sitting in the asset, because you have opportunity cost connected already with yourself sitting in the asset. And some other guy who was just watching after the chart, he had this chart on his watch list, he pretty much just saw you're leaving and he enters. Very, very important to understand these things and be selfish as well. Low liquidity issue, one of the main ones in the current market. Something I was sharing you actually in the video, I believe 2 days ago. So if we would check out the chart of Nero, which is a new Memecoin on Ethereum, right? We can see it has market cap of $180 million and liquidity of 1.6 million. Recently, in the recent times, 1.6 million of liquidity would only get you to maybe $16 million market cap. Right now, it's 10 to 11 times larger, which means that when you are selling or buying into any assets, you have the impact on the current price because there is not enough liquidity. You are losing money by default just through doing actions with your meme coins, with your purchases, with your assets. If you are selling low liquidity asset and if you're buying into low liquidity asset, it's very, very important to understand, and you cannot neglect this. If you're actively trading with larger sums, you may be losing thousands of dollars on a daily basis if you do 5 to 15 transactions a day. That's a very, very important thing. And I do think it's actually structured and made this way on purpose to make sure that math bots and people who farm these things, they can actually capitalize on it. They can capitalize on you wanting to buy and sell into low liquidity assets, which they can farm. That's a very, very interesting setup for them. It's almost like it's done on purpose. Obviously, it's also done because there is not a lot of liquidity in the marketplace currently, because people are bored, people feel apathy, people don't want to hear anything about this space at this stage. If you've done it once, you have a higher chance to do it again, underperforming heavily. If you have the asset that you are selling into other assets, there is, and you, like for once, you just rotate it into a new shiny object, you decided, well, it's probably going to do well at nice and things like that. If you've done it once, you have the chance to continue doing that. That's where is the issue. You have to block yourself from these things, because often over time, for default market participants, for 95% of market participants, it leads to underperformance heavily on the long enough time frame. Last but not least, you're probably selling from the asset you know shit of info on, which gives you conviction. Conviction is the most valuable thing on this marketplace. When you have conviction, you can hold, you can buy the dips, you understand what is the real speculative value of the asset. You know more information than other people know. It's very important. Into the asset you know nothing about. High chance to rotate further, trimming your bags. So when you're buying into something smaller, from something that you're holding, you probably don't know anything about this asset that you're buying into. There is a higher chance, if you would, for example, see a correction once you buy, you would just sell it right away. And what have you done? You have just trimmed your bags heavily. And after some time, you're nervous, you're stressed, because you see that the initial asset that you were holding, it has such a small back at this stage, because you were selling, you were rotating, and things like that. And this type of money, they just evaporated in the first place. And on anger, you just sell the whole initial asset like fully and exit. This is something you should be very, very careful about. Often it leads you to FOMO buying back in the chart, and 50 million market cap entry is way better than 70 million market cap entry. Obviously, if you're speaking about the assets that goes to hundreds of millions of dollars. How to evade? Kill FOMO. Don't FOMO into stuff. Understand what you're doing when you're FOMOing. You are sheep, probably being used as exit liquidity, depending on the time frame when you heard about the asset, and depending on the speculative value, and depending on whether or not you actually see upside in the asset. So it's kind of your intuition, your skill as well. But what you're oftentimes doing, you're selling something that's consolidating and buying into something that soon to be consolidated. Very, very important thing. Have a separate speculative capital allocated, the one you can play with and test out with different assets. That's a very, very nice piece of advice from my point of view. Just have a separate piece of capital allocated you like to play with. You buy into these FOMO things, you made some money here and there. Just have these separate capital. And ideal situation is that when it grows over time, it actually multiplies and increases over time. Understand what they're doing. Understand what type of charts you're buying and selling. Selling, consolidation, buying, upward manipulation right before liquidity creation. Let us actually check out the chart of Ponke, something I wanted to share as well. Right now, Ponke is at $250 million, right? So what we can see here is that we've been in this long period of consolidation right here, right? So consolidation, consolidation, consolidation. Then we had this breakout. If you bought in here, that's fine. Here, that's fine. If you bought in here, you pretty much just did less than 2x from the tops, and right now you're probably close to entry point. So it's very, very important to understand where do you enter. And what's interesting is that after this upwards move, we can see that we went down. We went right here. And this was another ideal actually point to enter. It was 55% correction from the top. And if we would check out different stages of manipulation of the asset, because we have Wintermute as market maker here. We have accumulation. They were accumulating the asset right here during this stage, right? Then here we have manipulation. So all the people that were buying, that were selling on FOMO, they are essentially entering here, right, into this green candle. And what they are doing, they're just pumping the chart themselves. Then what we have liquidity creation. So definitely some people, maybe Wintermute did themselves, most likely, and some whales, they were taking profits through this area, liquidity creation. Then we essentially have a second manipulation here. We can see that we did not have large accumulation because the asset kind of started moving already. And right now we are back down to these levels. Following this chart, I honestly think that we should be reversing quite soon. This chart kind of helps us as well because, and a lot of meme asset charts, they are looking exactly the same. They are facing the core supports currently. If they're going down, well, the market just goes to shit. We're done, nothing to do with crypto overall. But a lot of these assets, they're at key support areas, key support levels at this stage, which is very, very important to understand and see at this stage. And they're kind of hinting to us that, man, we should probably continue to pump from here. You can say that maybe we'll go like somewhere here to basically face a large liquidity level, but I don't think we're actually going there, right? Moving further, how to win? Buy into charts that are consolidating. There are a bunch of charts that are consolidating. You could have bought Ponke here. You could have bought Ponke here, Ponke here. Even this chart, you might say that it's actually consolidating. So if you were buying anywhere right here, if you were even buying at the top, like right here, you still did like a 2x. You're still not underwater. And Ponke is available on leverage. So like 0.39 entry point for Ponke. Very, very nice. I would take it. 0.42. It also was a very, very strong long level. A lot of people were longing from here. And it's interesting that we pretty much saw a bounce from it as well. So what you want to do is you want to buy assets that are in accumulation, that are positioned in the highest, best performing narrative of this cycle, meme coins, and that have a high chance of surging up from there, right? Check out the chart of Momo. Exactly the same thing. If you miss this run and you still want to get allocated into the asset like this, what you can do is you can buy on the accumulation. What you can do is you can buy on consolidation, on the corrections that we see after these pumps. Right here, a small one, and right now as well. That's why I'm saying currently is a great time to buy because most of the charts, most of the assets out there, they have similar charts like this. They're around key support levels, and we saw this bounce from 0.42. So you kind of had your confirmation already, partially, right? Because we bounced to 10% from the support level. Maybe just the bounce to go back down, right? But I don't think so. I think we're going to 75,000 per Bitcoin quite soon. Well, this is it. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if this piece of information was valuable, and if you're actually guilty yourself in trimming your bags, constant rotations, and things like that. Thank you. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.